to rock this place.
Welcome to the Buffalo Sports Conversation Room. I'm your host, Jamie Malloy, and I'm ready to talk conference championship game weekend. But first, I'd like to bring back on my co-host, Joe Dalio, then my cousin, AJ Gagolov, who's our special guest for this evening. AJ lives in Boston, but is a Buffalo Bills fan, and AJ originally grew up from Webster, New York, where I grew up and still live now, and Webster is still where life is worth living. Anyway, let's bring on Joe, and then AJ can introduce himself. So without any further ado, here's Joe. Hey, Joe, how's it going?
It is going very well. How you doing there in Webster, New York?
I'm good. Life's still where we're living. I was watching Syracuse a little bit. It's a 7-point game right now, but you know how basketball is. It's a game of runs.
That's right.
And especially now they got Adrian Autry coaching where they can play man now instead of 2-3 zone.
Yeah, exactly. I haven't paid too much attention to Syracuse this year. I usually do, but haven't caught them this year. But it's just a good week in Buffalo because it didn't snow. We got 5 feet last week here where I am in Lancaster, New York, and 40 degrees almost all week and rain, and 5 feet of snow is down to about 1. So I'm a happy camper here.
So am I. You ready to talk some football this week? Talk some conference championships and some other topics that was on the itinerary. You ready for it?
We have a lot of amazing stuff to talk about, and I am more than ready to discuss that. Yes.
And of course, I had to say, "Are you ready for it?" Because it always comes back to you know who.
Wow. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so now let's bring on my cousin. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome for the first time on the Buffalo Sports Conversation Room, our guest, my cousin from Boston, Massachusetts. Everybody, please welcome Mr. AJ Gagolov. Hey, AJ, how's it going, cuz?
Jamie, I'm doing well. How are you? Joe, good to see you.
Yes, welcome to the show, AJ.
Exactly.
Thank you. I am excited to be here. I know you guys were talking weather. Boston, we've had a nice. It's been a very Pacific Northwest winter for us. A lot of rain, very cold, but it's been good.
Awesome.
And would you like to tell our listeners and our viewers a little bit about yourself first before we?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I guess I am first off happy to be here. And second off, I work in advertising. I'm a writer. I like to, I watch, I'm sure both of you are significantly more knowledgeable on the sports front. I am coming at this purely from a fan standpoint, but I watch enough that I feel confident that I can contribute. So.
Well, yeah, you'll do great. The viewers are gonna love you, man. I already told Joe that he was gonna like you. So yeah, you're knowledgeable enough, which is good. So
yeah, and I'm not as knowledgeable as I think I am. So no pressure on you either here. So
okay, and before we start, I have to say hi to our recent 2 little Bills fans here, to AJ's family here, Max and Luke, his 2 little twin sons, who I haven't actually met yet, as they are just about to turn 6 months old next month and have been too young to travel home. So hi Max and Luke, and also hi Mandy, if you're at home, just to let you know, I got AJ on the podcast, so hopefully the family's doing well there.
Thank you. They're doing great. Mommy got to put them to bed tonight, so I got the night off. So thank you for having me on.
Sure. No problem. And I'm glad you do have the night off. So are we ready to now talk about conference championship weekend?
Definitely. Lots of good stuff to discuss.
Okay, let's do this then. So let's start with Sunday's 3:00 game with Kansas City taking on the Baltimore Ravens. With the Ravens making some costly mistakes, it ended up paying huge dividends for the Chiefs in the end, as the Chiefs held on to the 17-10 win to advance to Super Bowl 58. So, Joe, did you see that coming?
I'm not surprised. I thought the Ravens would win this game. I thought they had what it took. They've had past playoff failures before, and especially after the way they looked against Houston, I thought, this is the year that they're going to put all that behind them. And, Chiefs are a tough team, but I thought this was the year the Ravens take it. And I was very disappointed in them just because they played nervous the whole game. And it was more the offense that did that. Lamar Jackson didn't play like an MVP. Just these guys were making mistakes, and they were so tight. I was ready for them to snap. It was just unbelievable how they played 4 quarters of extremely nervous football. And again, that's the offensive side of the ball. I mean, I have to credit the Ravens defense. They've broken records this year, and they've been compared to that Super Bowl defense they had in 2000. Some of the guys from that team were here, and the Ravens defense has been playing amazing all year. And as I looked at the stats here, they certainly weren't the problem. I mean, they kept this team in the game, and as badly as the offense played, or as nervous, as tightly as they played, this defense kept them in the game and gave them a chance to win. And unfortunately, the offense couldn't take advantage of that. And on the other side, as much as you hate to give credit to the Chiefs, I think you have to. This team is just so championship caliber. I think, Patrick Mahomes, everybody was asking before the Bills game, how's this guy going to play on the road? And he's just cherished it. He's just taken that as another challenge. And he just seems to take every challenge that way. And playing on the road, it's almost fun for him, it seems like. And this guy he also cherishes that underdog role, and just saying, you're seriously, considering us underdogs again. Doesn't matter that we're playing at Baltimore against the top seed. We'll take that challenge too. And this team just methodically, just went along and took advantage of the Ravens' mistakes and did what they had to do. You look at them statistically, and there's nothing overwhelming, including Mahomes. He just played winning football and made the right plays at the right time. Some guy named Kelsey that sometimes shows up for playoff games. And of course, I'm being sarcastic because the guy just keeps getting better. He had amazing statistics. He had over 100 yards receiving. But you look at the rest of this team, and nothing really that impressive as far as statistics are concerned. But again, just winning championship football, taking advantage of a team that played desperate, nervous football, and ultimately, won in the end.
Mm-hmm. AJ, what do you think?
No, I think, and Joe, you mentioned the mistakes briefly that the Ravens made. I think that is the key, to me, the key difference, not only in that game, but where the Chiefs excel in the playoffs is if you make mistakes against the Kansas City Chiefs, they are going to make the plays they need to make when they need to make them, even though every single receiver on that team looked like they were coming out of junior college for most of the season. But they were making the catches they need to make. The Ravens defense had a few, at least that I saw, late in the game, the really costly personal fouls. Zay Flowers had that fumble on the 1 yard line. They just, everything that went wrong for the Ravens could have. And I think it was because they were, like you said, playing scared and trying to be overly aggressive when they just needed to play the game they'd been playing all season.
Right.
Yeah, and I agree with both you there. The Ravens just had their opportunities, and at the end, and like you said, fumbling at the 1 yard line with Zay Flowers, you do that against a team like Kansas City, who's got championship DNA, they're going to make you pay for it. And it also circles back to back in the day. If you did that against Brady and the Pats, same thing happened. The Pats would make the plays when and where they needed to make them. So yeah, but credit to the Chiefs for winning. And Baltimore, I don't know what that game plan was, but you were playing scared and nervous and got overly aggressive, but at least the defense kept you in the game and you held the Chiefs to 17 points, but the offense didn't help the cause either.
Yeah, and they went for their game plan. AJ said, they didn't do what got them there, and they were a run-heavy offense. And, I heard this on the radio earlier today, too. It's like, they were never down, I think, by more than a touchdown. So it's not like you have to make this 3-touchdown comeback and throw everything. They were in this game. And as I said, the defense kept them in the game. And, I don't think they had to stray from that. They could have easily stuck with the game plan and again, the manner of offense that got them here, which is a primarily running offense. So that they didn't have to stray from that. But again, playing nervous, that's pretty much what they did.
And the other thing to me with the Chiefs too is that they don't win. Nothing they do is pretty. Mm-hmm. They win ugly games, and the games that I saw that they lost this year were ugly games that they lost. And mm-hmm. They win when they need to. And that really is the difference maker in the playoffs, whether or not you're on a hot streak like Buffalo, for example, was going into the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's true. It's still about getting hot at the right time, especially with the parity in this league now. So anyway, moving on to the second game with the Detroit Lions playing the San Francisco 49ers at 6:30. This looked like the Lions that they were going to run away with in the first half, taking a 24-7 lead, and then the 49ers turned it around and scored 27 unanswered points. It finished the game with a 34-31 win, and now they'll be taking on the Kansas City Chiefs at Super Bowl 58. AJ, what'd you think of that game? It looked like it was going to be a Lions comeback, but the 49ers roared their way back to victory.
It was a feline failure in Detroit, and I feel so bad. I went to the game in Detroit for Thanksgiving last year, the Bills game, and Detroit is one of my favorite cities in the country. The people are awesome. The fans are great. I felt awful because, it's their first time there in 32 years, I think, 31 years. And they were there. They were in it the whole time. It looked like they were going to pull it out. We talked earlier about doing what got you there. I think Dan Campbell stuck with that. And for better or worse, it got them. I mean, I don't think his going for it on fourth down multiple times in the game was make or break. I think, you want to get points in those scenarios, kick the field goal if you can. Michael Badgley is not the greatest from 40 plus yards. So Dan wanted to stick with what got him there. He kept going for it on fourth down. I don't hate that call at all. And it wasn't just that, the interception off the face mask that Brandon Ayuk took into the end zone. Like, there were just things that you can't really, obviously you want to catch that interception and not give the guy a chance to catch it off your face mask. But like, those are the kinds of things that just, the ball didn't bounce the Lions' way a lot of times.
Yeah, that's true. It was a lot of weird bounces and things sometimes that are out of coaches and players' control. They just happen, but it is part of the equation of certain games. So yeah, we got to keep that in mind. Joe, your thoughts?
Yeah, I felt bad for the Lions fans too. You got far and you had this game. I just could not believe how the Lions were basically running over the San Francisco defense. They were just unstoppable. And it seemed like the 49ers had no answers. Now it's 24-7 at halftime. And I texted a couple of friends that were watching the game at the same time. And I said, the Lions defense is perfectly capable of choking this game away. Now, we know how the game turned out, but, losing that game, I wouldn't exactly call it a choke. Yes, crazy things happened. Yes, there were some questionable decisions, and I didn't really have any problem with those decisions either. Especially there was one situation where it was fourth and they went for it. that, if you go for a field goal and you miss the field goal, the ball's still going to be there anyway, in that general vicinity. So I really felt like they had nothing to lose and more to gain by going for it on fourth down. There was another situation I thought they maybe should have gone for the field goal, and I thought it would have made a difference. But I really don't have criticism for those calls. Again, you stuck with your guns. You did what you did all year successfully. Sometimes it's going to work, sometimes it's not. And in this case, on the biggest stage and, on the most important time, it didn't work. But I really don't have a major criticism there. There's some lessons to be learned, and I think Dan Campbell's very capable of learning those lessons. Again, just it's funny because people say, oh, the NFL is scripted and this and that, it's rigged. I don't know how you can script a ball bouncing off somebody's face, popping up in the air, and a wide receiver diving to catch that. Kind of impossible, in my opinion. And those are just some of the negative things that happen to the Lions. I mean, it's a sad way to go. And, people always say, luck happens because of hard work a lot of the time. And all of a sudden, whatever adjustments had to be made, the Santa Clara 49ers here made those adjustments and just decided and willed that we're going to win this game and nothing's going to stop us. And they made the adjustments they had to. They played like they were the better team, and that causes good luck sometimes. And just they took over. But, as much as that's a tough loss for the Lions, again, as I joked, almost that, hey, they could easily choke this away. I certainly don't see this as the Lions choking. I see it more as the 49ers just taking over and willing themselves to get to the Super Bowl, as, them feeling like they were the better team and the superior team and being able to do that. If you're a Lions fan, you got to be proud. It's a tough loss, yes, and you feel like maybe you had that ticket to the Super Bowl already stamped. But I think you got a lot of things to be optimistic about going forward, and certainly no shame in losing this game.
Yeah, but I also think Dan Campbell showed a lot of heart in that locker room, saying that this may be our only shot. And I think that was a really diplomatic way to motivate the team, because he knows his team's going to be good for a while. But who knows? This could have been their only shot. You don't always get an opportunity to knock out the 49ers and go to the Super Bowl. But no, the Lions are going to be a class organization. They're going to be in the hunt, I think, for a long time now. Dan Campbell's forever changed the reputation and the culture of that team as long as he's there.
Yeah, and then being in the NFC certainly helps too. I don't see too many teams, getting much better in the NFC. I mean, the Packers and there's some good teams there, but I think it would be more difficult to get to that situation in the AFC, where there's so many good teams. And now, some guy named Harbaugh coming into the mix too, just making it that much more difficult. But again, I think the Lions have a lot to be optimistic about.
Yeah, they do. The engines are still revving and running in the Motor City, which is good. Their batteries haven't permanently died, which is good.
And Ben Johnson is sticking around too. I saw he turned the Commander's plane around today. So
yeah, because he said he wanted more money, so that's why he stayed. AJ, you obviously knows this. I was watching 13 Wham News with your old high school buddy Dan Fates doing the sports.
Oh yeah,
and he always has the saying. He always says on his broadcast, it comes down to the dollar bills, y'all. He always says that. And Dan, if you're listening, hi, how you doing, buddy? I got my cousin and your buddy AJ on. So good luck tonight if you're reporting. So anyway, back to our regularly scheduled program. Now that we have Super Bowl 58 set with Kansas City and San Francisco, let's make our prediction with scores. Joe, do you want to go first?
Sure. And as far as making this prediction, let's just flip a coin right now. I have no idea. I do have a prediction here, And, I looked into this and I like to put some stats together and stuff, when I make these predictions. So, again, tough call, could go either way. Both teams are certainly good enough to win. Both teams are certainly deserving to win. There's reasons on both sides to say, how and why they will. And for some reason, this score keeps coming up on my simulations here. I've made the same score prediction for other games. And why not for the last game of the season? I'm going to do the same thing. Santa Clara 49ers 24, Kansas City Chiefs 23.
Ooh, you got the 49ers winning. I love that. The Santa Clara 49ers, as you call them.
Yes.
I think Chris Berman would love that if he heard you calling them the Santa Clara 49ers. Anyway, AJ, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's gonna, honestly, to me, the game breaker for everything is going to be how Brock Purdy plays. I think he doesn't get enough credit. And don't get me wrong, I watched that game last weekend. He makes some very questionable throws. He gets very lucky a lot of times, but he wins and he gets that team. They've designed an offense for him that works for him. And I think it's going to come down to who's going to get more stops. And to me, the adjustments that I saw San Francisco making last week, I think they can pull it out. I think, like Joe, I think it's going to be a close game. But I think San Francisco's offense is just going to be able to move the ball too well against Kansas City. It's going to be, I think, a high-scoring game. So I'm going to say 27-24 San Francisco.
Okay.
Okay, well, at first, I really didn't give the 49ers any shot in this game against Kansas City because we all know what happened 4 years ago when the Chiefs ended up pulling away from the game, even though San Francisco was winning. But I think these are two vastly different teams. The Chiefs have gotten better, but I think the one thing that the 49ers could be able to do and have a chance at winning is if they stop the run game with Isaiah Pacheco. Because what I noticed, Baltimore did the same thing. They stopped they were containing Pacheco and were allowing Mahomes to get into 2nd and 10 or 3rd and long situations. And I think if the 49ers can do that and also get Mahomes off the field on 3rd and long, I think the 49ers will win this game. And I'm going to say 24-20 San Francisco.
Okay. We're all on the same page with that one.
Mm-hmm. Wishful thinking, I think, in part.
Yeah, part of the heart factors into that as well. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so last week we talked about what head coaches got the axe, and no, not Paul Bunyan's axe. Just axe meaning fired, and what teams they may end up with Saturday. We learned that the Chicago Bears hired our Buffalo Bills defensive line coach, Eric Washington, as their new defensive coordinator to replace Alan Williams. Now, Joe, who do you think the Bills will hire to replace the opening defensive line coach? And what do you think of Eric Washington now being the defensive coordinator since Alan Williams was fired last year and Matt Eberflus had to call the plays?
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for him, and I think it's well-deserved. I think he deserved an opportunity around the league, and he's got some good players to work with there already because the Bears defense was playing quite well at second half of the season. So I think that's a good spot for him, and I think he's going to make an impression there and improve that defense even more. Unfortunately, I'm going to say something on a podcast here or anywhere that I'm not supposed to say. You're asking about the replacement, and I'm going to say I have absolutely no idea who they will get here or who they should get here. I thought about it and really it's kind of a crapshoot in my opinion, and I don't have an answer for that. I'm going to be honest with you. Just somebody to fill his shoes. I know that's a very general answer, and that narrows it down to a few hundred. But, just again, somebody that's going to continue what he's been doing. But I don't have an answer to that question, to be honest with you. But again, I'm happy for him, and I think it's a well-deserved opportunity.
Yeah, and he gets to reunite with Tremaine Edmonds again, who Tremaine Edmonds knows him from being in his time with Buffalo, and now he'll get to be there to play out the rest of the year 2 of his 4-year, $72 million deal that Edmonds signed with the Bears this year, and now he gets to reunite with a guy he knows and was a Sean McDermott assistant too, so that'll help as well. And I think his concepts will probably be similar to McDermott, where he gets aggressive with more blitzing, and I bet you he puts everybody up on the line like McDermott did and things like that. If he can do that, that'll help the Bears defense get even better this year, and maybe be one of the top units in the league this year. AJ, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Bears, it's a great hire for them. They're a few pieces away from, I think, on both sides of the ball, really, if Justin Fields continues to play the way he's been playing. I think they're a few pieces away from being a contender for the North again. And as far as a replacement goes, I love what the Bills have been doing as far as, almost using this coaching staff as like a farm system. Both defensively, offensively, especially, but defensively, I think was it Marcus Ware, I think was the assistant D-line coach. So he's been around for a couple of years. I'm not opposed to anybody from the current staff stepping up and, getting an internal promotion, and let's, let it ride, see where it comes out on the other end.
That's how the Bills, that's how successful teams want to do it. I mean, if the Bills want to do it that way, they want to compete for championships and use an opportunity to promote coaches that deserve it. And I think that's a format that can still work. So,
I mean, look at what the Patriots did for so many years. They kept everything was always in-house. Everyone talked about the Bill Belichick coaching tree until guys went somewhere else and ended up back on the Pats 2 years later because they couldn't do it on their own.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. But so yeah, in terms of, I thought it was interesting when they were interviewing the defensive coordinator, they were interviewing a gentleman named Mike Caldwell, who just got released by the Jacksonville Jaguars, but he knows McDermott from Philadelphia under the Jim Johnson system under Andy Reid, who's in the Super Bowl now. So all those guys know each other, but if they could find a way to get Caldwell in there, but like you said, promote the assistant D-line coach, I'm all for whatever continues to make the D-line successful as it was. And I wish Eric Washington good luck in his new job. And I think he'll do well.
I do too.
Mm-hmm. So, and on Sunday, speaking of using our coaches as a farm system, AJ, and promoting people, we just found out that the Bills hired Joe Brady as their permanent offensive coordinator. So, AJ, do you feel the Bills organization made the right decision? And what are your thoughts on if it was the right decision or not?
I think, well, first off, yes, I think it was the right decision. I think 3 years ago, you open up that offensive coordinator job and you could have hired anybody even adjacent to the NFL to take it. Given where they are now and where they're going to be coming up on with contracts, things like that, I think, one, Joe Brady knows the system. Obviously, he was probably running a little bit of Dorsey's system as he took over as the interim, but he showed something that I haven't seen from a Bills offensive coordinator in a long time, and that's not abandoning his game plan until he needed to. You watched a lot. I saw a lot of it with Dorsey. He would, go out, run his early script, and if it wasn't working, he'd get away from it and never go back to it. Joe Brady never went away. He kept pounding the ball when they needed to, wasn't afraid to go back and, and pass on short downs when they needed to throw. I really liked what he did. I thought he was aggressive where he needed to be. I thought he was utilizing the personnel really well, which, obviously next year that could look a little bit different, but I think I loved it. I think it's a great hire. Yeah,
me too. And like you said, a few years ago, you said anybody could have taken that offensive coordinator job, but a few years ago, our whole weapons on offense was just Knox, Diggs, and Davis. We didn't really have a guy named Dalton Kincaid now and Khalil Shakir. I give Brandon Beane credit when he realized that he was doing well defensively. He needed to address the offensive side of the ball because the offensive side of the ball was lacking some of those key positions that you need now. Like when he went and said, we're going to go get Dalton Kincaid, a superstar tight end, that's like a Travis Kelce or a Gronk. And he knew that you got to have that type of tight end to today's game that could create mismatches. And that's the name of the game now for Brandon Beane's plan heading into the offseason is go get Allen and Brady more weapons, like a speedy wide receiver in the first round or in free agency to build around like Khalil Shakir and Kincaid and Diggs to just keep creating mismatches because that's how offenses are now. It's a mismatch league now when you're trying to call plays on offense.
Mm-hmm.
So, Joe, what do you think?
Also just to add to what you just said, the guys that they didn't have, they also didn't have some guy named James Cook because the Bills had something called a running game this year, which was basically the anchor of the offense, and again, when they had good rushing games, they won. So that's another thing to add to the arsenal. I just love to see interim coaches get rewarded for excellence. We saw it with the Raiders and their coach getting hired after doing a great job with them. And I think that was well-deserved. And I think it's the same thing. Again, I'm not one of those people that's going to heavily criticize Dorsey. I think it was the right move at the time. But I certainly think, Joe Brady turned this offense completely around and the fortunes of the team completely around. So I love to see him get rewarded for that. And are there probably better offensive coordinators out there? Yes. But I think based on this situation, I think based on the knowledge of the system and, again, rewarding him for what he did here, and certainly it's not like he's a slouch. He certainly knows his stuff. I'm very, very happy that he got this opportunity and he got the reward that he deserved.
Like I said, I'm happy too. He's always been known as a quarterback whisperer, and that showed with every game. Josh Allen got better each game, and he was already a quarterback whisperer with Joe Burrow when he led LSU to the national championship title that year over Clemson in 2020 pre-pandemic. So speaking of Mr. Dorsey, we also found out that our former offensive coordinator himself from the Bills was hired by the Cleveland Browns as their new offensive coordinator. So Dorsey was a quarterback for Cleveland from 2006 to 2008. Joe, what do you think of Dorsey still landing another job? And oddly enough, with another team in Lake Erie, the Browns, do you think he could fit that culture? I know it didn't work out for the Bills, but he still got another job, and the Browns still see something in him.
Yeah, I think that's a good move for both sides. I think it's obviously a good move for Dorsey. It's another opportunity. I think he's smart enough to apply some learned lessons here. He's got a different offense there. So basically, I think he gets to start, and kind of start from scratch a little bit, instead of inheriting something that, from Brian Daboll, for example, and something that was already established. I think he can make more of an impression there. So I think it's a good career move for him. Again, going back to the city that he played in for a few years. And I think it's a good move for the Browns. Again, I don't think Dorsey is a horrible offensive coordinator. His ideas and implementation didn't really fit here, I think, or it didn't work well here. But I think, again, you have a good offensive mind here for a team that's still basically trying to find itself offensively. Things worked out very well this year with Flacco there, and again, a fourth string quarterback basically. But I think he can make an impression there, and I think it's a good move for Dorsey. I think it's a good move for the Browns.
Yeah, and I think being there with an offensive guy himself, like Kevin Stefanski, who already has that offensive background as a head coach, being a former offensive coordinator himself, I think that can mesh well together. AJ, what do you think?
Yeah, I was always, I mean, until those last few weeks, and I don't think Dorsey was entirely to blame for any of that little skid the Bills seem to have every single season, kind of mid-season around the London game or against the Jaguars. But I think that one, he's a great coordinator. When his system, when his play design was working, it was working. The Bills were out putting up, 35 points a game. And I think that a team with weapons like Cleveland has is a great fit for him. I think a change of scenery will be good for him. And it's good for him to get back, working with an organization that he played for. I think he's named number 13 or 14 on the back of that guy's jersey that keeps adding the Browns starting quarterback names. I think there's been like 30 of them in the last 18 years or something. If you haven't seen it, look it up. It's very funny. But yeah, I think it's good for Dorsey, good for the Browns. I think they're getting a good coordinator. And I think he's starting with a clean slate, and the expectations are a little lower. It's hard to step into that job when he did in Buffalo with what Buffalo had on the line. People saying the window's closing. You gotta win and win now. And I think that he just was kind of the scapegoat at the time.
Yeah, I couldn't said it better myself. I mean, he did inherit a lot from Dable, but at least he was able to make usage of it when he was here. And the one thing I liked what he was doing in the beginning was kind of doing the Deebo Samuel effect, where he put Diggs and Deontay Hardy in the backfield and was using kind of 49ers pre-snap motion stuff too, like you see the 49ers do. And then unfortunately, I think he kind of didn't want Allen to run as much because they had a good running game. So he was kind of the scapegoat for that. But I think he'll do well. And like I said, he'll do well in Cleveland. It's just they got to find a quarterback for him. And who knows, maybe this is the fresh start for him to get back into finding a head coaching job next year if he does well heading into this time next season.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of another promotion, we just found out today that Bobby Babich has been promoted to defensive coordinator. They were pretty much going to lose him to another team if the Bills didn't promote him, because he was offered at least 3 defensive coordinating positions by other teams. They actually include our rival, the Dolphins, and even the Giants with Brian Dable, because Brian Dable knew him from his time in Buffalo. Mm-hmm. And guess what? He's the only coach from the original 2017 staff when McDermott was hired to still be on here. And he started coaching the DBs. Then he moved up to linebackers last year, and now he's going to be named defensive coordinator. But AJ, do you think that the 37-year-old DC, will he be calling the plays, or is McDermott still going to be calling the plays? Or what do you think? Or could it be a conversation that they might have together?
I think it'll be a conversation. I have a feeling whether or not he's calling the plays, it will still be McDermott's defense. He clearly has a plan for how he wants, both sides of the ball to look, as, obviously as the head coach, but he's a defensive mind. I think that he is going to still have his hands, whether or not he's calling the plays. I think McDermott will have his hands in everything on the defense. Mm-hmm. But I love the hire. I love that it's coming from the calls coming from inside the house. He's worked with the DBs. He's worked with the linebackers. Those are the units that make or break that Buffalo defense. And, they're going to have to replace some secondary pieces this offseason, and who better to do it than someone who knows and has worked with that, those guys.
Mm-hmm. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. I thought McDermott was doing an excellent job of handling the defensive duties himself, but I certainly understand this hire. I mean, you want to keep the guy here. And again, it's another situation of rewarding somebody for doing an excellent job with their previous job. look at the Bills linebacker core. I mean, significant injuries. And in the beginning of the season, I mean, we didn't know who the middle linebacker was going to be. We didn't know what a lot of different situations were. And to keep that unit together, getting somebody like AJ Klein in there to call the shots and to do it quite well, I think this coach has a lot to do with that. So, I think I agree. I think McDermott's going to still have his fingerprints all over this. But I think it's, again, you want to keep a guy like this in the organization. And I think, another mind, another defensive mind in there to assist and to coordinate this, I think will certainly help. So, I like the hire as well, even though, again, I thought McDermott, things were going extremely well with him doing it. But I don't think you can go wrong in this situation either.
No, you can't. And guess what? Now that the Bills have their two coordinators, they're going to be one of the youngest coordinator tandems in the league. Joe Brady's only 34. And as I mentioned, Bobby Babich is only 37. And that's a stark contrast from McDermott's first two coordinators at the time, who were Leslie Frazier at like 57 and Rick Dennison at 58. So he's come a long way since then.
Exactly.
And guess what? It's now that time for our question of the week segment. So as I mentioned earlier, backstage during the intro, AJ, would you like to give it a try?
Sure, I'm in.
Okay, AJ, here's your question. Can you guess this NFL quarterback? He played on 3 different teams. He was top 20 in passing yards all time and won an MVP and a Super Bowl championship. Is it Joe Flacco, Phil Simms, Warren Moon, or Kurt Warner?
You said did win a Super Bowl?
Yes.
I'm going to have to say Joe Flacco.
You got it. You're correct. It was Joe Flacco. He originally played for the Ravens, and he won an MVP in the year 2012, and he happened to win that Super Bowl when, obviously enough, when everybody remembers the lights went out in that game. And also that was the Harbaugh Bowl, and John's Ravens got the best of Jim's 49ers that year. So congratulations, AJ. You did a great job.
Thank you.
I think you're the first one of us to get it right in a few weeks, too.
Okay, now let's take a look at the finalists for the NFL Honor Awards. Voters were asked to sort their top 5 nominations for each category. The winners will be revealed on February 8th, 2024, live on CBS and on the NFL Network and the NFL Honor Ceremony. I thought it would be fun to pick our favorites to see how far we come, or how close. Sorry, not how far. Excuse me, how close we come to the winners. So, Joe, who is your pick for AP Most Valuable Player and why? So, anyway, here are the nominees for the 2024 AP Most Valuable Player. Number 1, Josh Allen, Buffalo Bills quarterback. 2, Lamar Jackson, Baltimore Ravens quarterback. 3, Christian McCaffrey, or CMC, the San Francisco 49ers running back. 4, Dak Prescott, the Dallas Cowboys quarterback. And number 5, Brock Purdy, the San Francisco 49ers quarterback.
All of them are deserving. All of them are great players, but I'm going to go with Lamar Jackson. I think just, taking his team they were the number 1 seed in the AFC. He seemed to get better as time went on. You can find some negatives in there about each quarterback or each player, even actually McCaffrey, not so much, but I just thought that, as far as what this award stands for, as far as most valuable player, as far as a team being lost without somebody, I think it would be a huge impact, with him being out. And again, as you can make that case pretty much for all the other people, but I just thought overall, as far as overall leadership ability, and again with the best results, I have to go with Lamar.
Okay, so that's one vote for Lamar Jackson. AJ, what do you think?
Is it who I think should win or who I think will win? Because those are two different answers.
Who do you think will win it?
I think the most, honestly, I'm going to sound like a homer. I think Josh Allen, from a pure statistic output standpoint, should be the winner. You take him off of that offense, and the Bills are this season, probably 3-14, what is it, 14 now, 17?
3 or 14, yeah.
Yeah, I just think he is such a game changer for that offense, for that team. As far as who I think will win it, I gotta go with Mahomes. What he's done year in and year out. I know it's not about other years. This year specifically, with an offense that, other than Kelsey and Pacheco, has really been kind of pieced together. I think that it's incredible to watch him. And as much as it pains me to say, he makes the plays he needs to make when he needs to make them. I don't think you could plug any other quarterback, any other player into that offense and have the impact that he has. Just watching him play when he's halfway into a sack and somehow squirts out of it and ends up, throwing the ball to Kelsey, who's been wandering around in midfield for, 15 seconds because you can't tackle him. Just his contribution to that team, to me, I think is, especially if they end up winning the Super Bowl, I think there's no, you can't deny it.
Mm-hmm. And I'm actually going to go what you said, who do I think should win? And I think he actually will win it. I'm actually going to say Josh Allen, because of the people on this list, he probably had, besides Brock Purdy, he had one of the best playoffs statistically again, especially that Chiefs game where he played well enough to win. And if it wasn't for wide right and a couple of other plays like Diggs dropping a pass there or a few others dropping a pass, Bills would be in this game, I think, playing San Francisco. So, yeah, I'm going to say Josh Allen. So we have one vote for Jackson, one vote for Mahomes, even though he wasn't one of the nominees mentioned, and I have Josh Allen. Okay, so now moving on to AP Offensive Player of the Year. AJ, who do you think will be your choice and why? Now, here are the nominees for the 2024 or 2023 AP Offensive Player of the Year. Number 1, Tyreek Hill, Miami Dolphins wide receiver. 2, Lamar Jackson, Baltimore Ravens quarterback. 3, CeeDee Lamb, Dallas Cowboys wide receiver. 4, Christian McCaffrey, San Francisco 49ers running back. And 5, Dak Prescott, hello, old friend, Dallas Cowboys quarterback. As Jim Nantz would say, hello, friends. Anyway.
I'm gonna go with Christian McCaffrey, just solely based on the fact that the guy is guaranteed at least a touchdown a game. Like, it's unbelievable how reliable he is as far as scoring. I think there was a streak that he had like 13 weeks in a row or something ridiculous where they're going to get him the ball and he's going to get into the end zone. And I think that of that list, you don't really see that with anybody else. Tyreek, yeah, he's great, but Miami's offense is so built around speed. Achane had a great year. I think from a purely production standpoint, you can't overlook CMC. He's just so good.
Okay, so that's one vote for CMC. Joe, what do you think?
You had mentioned Tyreek Hill. I remember in the middle of the season, we had a podcast here, and he was my vote for MVP at that time. And, he still had a great season. But I think I'm going to make it 2 votes for Christian McCaffrey, for the reasons that AJ mentioned. I kind of measure it not so much in touchdowns, but in fantasy points. And you're pretty much guaranteed, to get 25 points or so with him every week. But, just the consistency and, people don't talk about his passing, his receiving ability either. He's a valuable receiver as well as just an excellent running back that again, as you said, is almost guaranteed at least one touchdown a game. So when you're looking at offensive production and statistics and things like that, then I'm definitely going to go with McCaffrey as well.
I'm actually going to go with your original prediction, Joe. I'm actually going to say Tyreek Hill. Yes, their offense is built around speed and everything, but what wide receiver, man, how rare is it that he came close to 2,000 yards receiving this year? And honestly, if he was still playing for the Chiefs, I think he could have 2,500. I mean, the guy's just a generational receiver, and he's just so fast, too, that they used to use him on kick returns, too, but now they don't anymore. So it's 2 votes for Christian McCaffrey and 1 vote for Tyreek Hill. Now, drawing our attention to the AP Defensive Player of the Year. Joe, what player would be your choice and why? And here are the nominees for AP Defensive Player of the Year. Number 1, DaRon Bland, Dallas Cowboys quarterback. 2, Max Crosby, Las Vegas Raiders defensive end. 3, Myles Garrett, Cleveland Browns defensive end. 4, Micah Parsons, Dallas Cowboys linebacker, DN. Let's just call him pass rush freak, pass rush god, okay? The Greek god of pass rushing. And number 5, TJ Watt, Pittsburgh Steelers linebacker, another pass rushing freak. So who do you think, Joe?
Yeah, again, all deserving names and all great players here. But there was one of those defenses that just stood out that, people were saying one of the best defenses we've seen in years. And of course, I'm talking about the Cleveland Browns. And the leader of that defense, I think, was Myles Garrett. So he's certainly going to get my vote here if I had a vote, So again, all of these made positive impacts, especially those Cowboys defenders too. If I wasn't voting for Garrett, I'd probably vote for one of them. But as far as an overall defensive leader on arguably, we talked about the Ravens defense and how great that was. But again, Cleveland was right up there and just as impressive defense. And the leader of it, I think, should get the award, Myles Garrett.
Sure, I can see that from your point of view. AJ, what do you think?
Yeah, I got to agree with Joe. Myles Garrett, year in and year out is just an incredible force on on that Browns defense. And the fact that he's able to, especially this year, he obviously had that whole thing a few years ago where he tried to beat Mason Rudolph with his own helmet. And you didn't see much of that. He was able to really dial in and focus where that could have been a turning point for a lot of players. The fact that he's able to go out and produce and still look, he's having fun while he does it. And just you watch him play and you can't deny that he's the best overall defensive player in the league.
Okay. That's 2 votes for Myles Garrett, and I'm going to have to go in a different direction. I'm going to go with Micah Parsons, the Dallas Cowboys linebacker / defensive end / human pass rush freak. I think you got to go Micah Parsons. I mean, I know the defense stumbled at the end because of one certain individual, Dan Quinn, there not being able to stop the run. But Micah Parsons, every time he's out there, he's just always sacking the quarterback. He's fast. He's always flying to the ball and pursuing, and he's always ready there to pursue and make the tackle. Basically, I think the second coming of Lawrence Taylor. So, yeah, I got Micah Parsons. So we have 2 votes for Myles Garrett and 1 vote for Micah Parsons.
Okay.
Now, let's take a look at the AP Offensive Rookie of the Year. AJ, what Offensive Rookie of the Year would you choose and why? Here are the nominees for AP Offensive Rookie of the Year. 1, Jahmyr Gibbs, Detroit Lions running back. Number 2, Sam Laporta, Detroit Lions tight end. Number 3, Puka Shell Nakua Matata, Los Angeles Rams wide receiver. Number 4, Bijan Robinson. Sorry, not Brian Robinson. He's with the Commanders. But Bijan Robinson, Atlanta Falcons running back. And number 5, CJ Stroud and Proud, Houston Texans quarterback?
I think they're all great choices. I know a lot of times these awards tend to go to guys on teams that were more successful. And I think I gotta go with, I think Sam Laporta. He since week 1 has been a game changer for that offense, and he carried that production throughout the season, which, 1, is hard to do as a rookie, and 2, with the weight of Detroit and that run on your shoulders, he's just another tight end university success story.
Mm-hmm. And like, speaking of tight end, that camp is run by who I like to call AJ, your doppelganger, but everybody knows him as Greg Olsen, Fox Sports analyst to Kevin Burkhardt, because me and my dad think Greg Olsen reminds me of you, AJ. Do you kind of get that a lot?
I've heard it. I think he's definitely a little more athletic than I am.
Yeah, but his voice and his like humor sounds just like you though when he talks. So, anyway, but where was I going with this? I do think it's, especially because it's more of a tight end driven league now. And if you look at the class of tight ends that came out with him, Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft, and Dalton Kincaid, that this is probably going to go down as, it's early, but probably going to go down as one of the historic tight end draft classes in 2023. And it's a tight end driven league now, but it's also a quarterback driven league. I'm actually going to say CJ Stroud because before he got to Houston was a dumpster fire. Nobody wanted to coach this team until some guy from the Santa Clara 49ers defensive coordinator named DeMeco Ryan showed up and immediately built that bond with his rookie quarterback as a first-year head coach and took Houston to the divisional round as a rookie. So I'm actually going to go CJ Stroud. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, you said exactly what I was going to say. I mean, this is the toughest one. This group of players is the toughest decision to pull one. Because if it wasn't for Stroud, I would have go with Nacua, because he broke receiving records that we've never seen, from rookies. And, you were just saying it's a tight end driven league and these tight ends making an impression, and by the way, that Greg Olsen comparison, I would take that as a compliment. I mean, that's not a bad comparison at all. But for the exact same reason that Jamie just said, I would go with CJ Stroud, just because of, first of all, the impression that he make. I mean, this guy doesn't throw interceptions. He throws less interceptions, fewer interceptions than most veteran quarterbacks. And, just to have that composure and as a rookie, I think is impressive enough. But to take a team that was supposed to be slightly improved, that ended up winning its division and winning a playoff game, I think is just the most impressive thing out of all of these that, the reason that if I was a voter, I would give the award to CJ Stroud as well.
And what I like about him too is he's a very humble kid, grounded kid too, coming in as a rookie from Ohio State. And he's very, very vocal about his faith, believes in it, isn't a hypocrite. He actually believes in what he says with his Christian faith. And everything. And I know that gets questioned a lot in the NFL, but that's a great quality to have, I think, in a young man like him. But also, he's got great poise in the pocket. People forget he's also a dual threat, too. He can take off with his legs like he did at Ohio State. So he can be that tush-push quarterback while also staying in the pocket. And AJ, what did you actually – this is irrelevant, but what did you think of the tush-push being a valuable play this year? Because I think CJ Stroud could run that besides being offensive rookie of the year.
I don't know why teams haven't been doing it since the QB sneak. If there's no rule against it, why not?
Yeah, and just because one team was doing it better in the Eagles until we started doing it with Joe Brady and Josh Allen. We started doing the tush push, and it was working. Yeah, if it's not banned, do it. And like Troy Vincent, former Buffalo Bill and Philadelphia Eagle, basically who's the VP of football operations, said we're not banning, and he said that plays evolved a lot, and it's actually. And I think it's something that for a league that's been known as the no fun league, I think it actually kind of makes the NFL fun in the modern game, is adding something like that. So,
yeah, to answer your question, we had a previous guest on a few weeks ago that said, maybe it should be banned because it's aiding the runner. And perhaps that's why teams haven't been doing it since the QB sneak, is because it would be considered aiding the runner and being done that way. But I think it's a strategic play. And, we've agreed here too that, we like having it as part of the game, and I'm glad they kept the rule in there.
Well, no, they should keep the rule in there too, especially with it being such a dual threat quarterback league now. When you have all these guys that can run and not just throw, you should take advantage of it. Like they were doing the QB sneak back in the day. I mean, AJ, let's talk about a guy named Trent Edwards who even did the quarterback sneak. Probably one of not the most or Tom Brady and Drew Bledsoe would do the quarterback sneak, and they weren't the fastest guys out there either.
No,
so they could do
one of the most successful QB sneakers of all time, I think.
Brady was, yeah.
Conversion rate.
And now in a league where you got Jalen Hurts and all these running quarterbacks, why not take it a step further and keep that rule in?
Yeah.
So, now we're going to move on to AP Defensive Player of the AP Comeback Player of the Year. Sorry, guys, I lost my train of thought there. But moving on to AP Comeback Player of the Year, AJ, who would be your choice and why? Now, here are the nominees for AP Comeback Player of the Year. Number 1, Joe Flacco, Cleveland Browns quarterback. Number 2, Damar Hamlin, Buffalo Bills safety. Number 3, Baker Mayfield, Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback. Number 4, Matthew Stafford, Los Angeles Rams quarterback. And number 5, Tua Tagovailoa, Miami Dolphins quarterback.
I don't see. I think Damar Hamlin obviously, made the ultimate comeback, if you would. Like the guy, the fact that he's even playing football, let alone on an NFL roster, is incredible. From a production standpoint and a performance standpoint, I have to go Joe Flacco. He wasn't in the league last year. Or if he was a fourth string. He might have still been hanging around the Jets locker room. But he, the fact that he was able to take a team to the playoffs the way he did, I don't think you can look at any of those other players and say they did more for their team.
Mm-hmm. And actually, we have a quote from Joe Flacco himself, and it kind of sounds like he's throwing an endorsement for Damar Hamlin too, not just himself, because the quote says here from him, the Comeback Player of the Year award shouldn't just be about who improved the most from one year to another, but who had to overcome the most adversity to do so. And Flacco's right; he improved the most from one year to another. But a guy like Damar, basically went from being declared deceased on the field to being alive and playing. So you can see it from both ends. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I think one of the first ones we talked about here, AJ had mentioned, there's a difference maybe between who's going to win it and who should win it. So I think Damar Hamlin will win it. I think he's just going to get the votes for it, and deservedly so. I mean, certainly, like you said, to overcome the odds that he did. And, he had to overcome odds just to be alive, never mind play football again. So certainly it's a deserving award there. But again, I would go with Joe Flacco as well, by just, taking a team that was dead in the water and again, 3 quarterbacks before him that or 2 at least, that were off the field. And here to not only, just take over and keep the ship afloat, but to sail the ship, and again, just to end the way they did. I mean, in the regular season anyway, it was just amazing. I mean, it wasn't a good playoff game, and you knew reality had to set in at some point. But, since this is a regular season award, if I had a vote, I would vote for Joe Flacco. But I do believe, Damar Hamlin will win it.
I agree with you, Joe. It like you said, AJ, in the other question about the MVP award, who I think should win it versus who will win it. I'm going to say Joe Flacco should win it because obviously he produced 1 year after being on the Jets roster and not even making the Jets final roster after that, playing with the Cleveland Browns. But who will win it is Damar Hamlin, just because I feel like there'll be like catastrophic events or like tragic things happening outside of the football world and maybe some naughty behavior by fans if Damar Hamlin doesn't win it. So I'm going to say Joe Flacco should win it, but Damar Hamlin will win it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's now talk about the AP Coach of the Year. Joe, what coach will you be your choice for Coach of the Year and why? Number 1, Dan Soup for Everybody Campbell, Detroit Lions. Number 2, John Harbaugh, the Baltimore Ravens. Number 3, we have DeMeco Ryans, Houston Texans. Number 4, Kyle and Style Shanahan, San Francisco 49ers. And number 5, Kevin Stefanski of the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, we had this conversation mid-year, and I voted for. I said I would definitely vote for Stefanski at that point, and would certainly go that route now. I mean, you could make a case, well, really for any of these guys, especially DeMeco Ryans. I think again to take a team that was supposed to be a nice little story and improve a little bit and take them to a division title, I think is incredible. But with all that the Browns had to endure, losing some of their best offensive players, and again, just you talk about keeping the ship afloat, doing the job that he did and having this team win as many games as they did, the amazing defense in there as well. I think definitely Kevin Stefanski should win this, and I think he will win it hands down.
Mm-hmm. Now, originally, my 2 choices were Dan Campbell and DeMeco Ryans. And DeMeco Ryans is actually, I think, a cool story and everything where he took a team that nobody wanted to coach and brought in a rookie quarterback and made the divisional round as a rookie head coach quarterback tandem. But Dan Campbell basically almost pulled a Jimmy Johnson with the Cowboys, with the Detroit Lions, where in his first year, it was obviously a rebuild. They were 3-13, but you could see the players were developing. Then they got better in year 2 and still weren't there, but were 9-8 and almost made the playoffs. And their third year, they finally got to the NFC Championship in 32 years. And it's kind of like what the Cowboys did with Jimmy Johnson, 1-15 and 7-9, to then winning 2 Super Bowls back-to-back with Jimmy Johnson. I mean, I think Dan Campbell did nobody would probably thought that you would see a Jimmy Johnson coaching job like that ever again in the modern day era. But I'm going to go with Dan Campbell because he almost pulled that off.
Excellent.
AJ, what do you think?
I would say Dan Campbell if it were looking at beyond this season's. What he's done in Detroit, I think, is incredible. But I got to go with DeMeco Ryans for exactly the reasons you said, Jamie. The fact that nobody wanted to coach that team, and he made the playoffs as a first-year head coach, like with a rookie quarterback, and their running back is Devin Singletary, who's a great running back, but like he's there because Buffalo didn't want to re-sign him with James Cook on the roster. So the fact that DeMeco Ryans was even able to sniff the playoffs, let alone, hang in there for as long as they did with Baltimore. I think he all season has shown that, he's here to stay and should win Coach of the Year.
Exactly. And guess who could win it next year? And this would be the greatest coaching job I think anybody has ever done. what's his name? Dan Canales or David Canales with the Carolina Panthers. Because I mean, who wants a Carolina Panthers job right now? And if he could somehow, even if he goes like what they were 2-15 this year, even if he goes 7-10 or 6-11 in his first year with Bryce Young, with that team and turns them around, I think he may be considered up for the coach of the year. But that's a pipe dream, but that could happen though. We'll see. That job right now is worse than the Houston job than when D'Amico Ryans came in. That's actually a worse situation for him, I feel like. But that'll be if I'm here next year and that comes true. Let's remember we talked about this on the podcast.
Yeah, we heard it here first on this podcast.
Yeah,
that's right.
And he's on the list. You know who to credit, but you also know who to blame too if it doesn't happen. Yeah. We're like the quarterback in this situation. But anyway, back to our regular scheduled program. Finally, we have the AP Assistant Coach of the Year to pick from. AJ, who would be your choice and why? We have Ben Johnson, Detroit Lions offensive coordinator, who basically flipped the bird to the Commanders' head coaching job and is staying with the Lions. Number 2, we have Mike Macdonald, the Baltimore Ravens defensive coordinator, or as I would say, Mike McDonald's on this list. E-I-E-I-O. Number 3, Todd Monken, the Baltimore Ravens offensive coordinator. Although I don't know after that AFC Championship game, you really want to vote for him. But Mike Macdonald, you could still vote for because the defense did well. Jim Schwartz, who we know is a defensive guru, just kind of like a Wade Phillips or a Sean McDermott or somebody like that. Every defense he's touched has done well, and he had the number 1 defense in the league this year for Cleveland. And he had a great defense with the Bills under Doug Marrone before he left, and we all remember when he quit. And number 5, Bobby Slowick, Houston Texans offensive coordinator. So who are you going with, AJ?
I'm going with Ben Johnson. Detroit's offense, they do have weapons, but not. I watched every Lions game I watched this year. I was impressed with play design and just the way he's able to get those guys open and into space and utilize the running game as much as he does in such a pass-heavy league. As well as he does, I got to go with Ben Johnson.
Yeah, I can agree with that, especially the fact that you got a budding superstar in rookie tight end Sam Laporta. And the one thing Ben Johnson knows how to do, especially with Jared Goff, who's more of an old school pocket quarterback and doesn't run as much, is you got to use the old school play action with him to be able to get receivers wide open, since you can't really run read option or RPO or the tush push with them. It's all about that setting up that play, establishing the run, so then it can open up the passing game and the play action for Goff and running a balanced attack like that. So we got 1 vote for Ben Johnson. Joe, who do you think?
Yeah, it's a tough call. I mean, I would vote for Ben Johnson just for flipping the bird to the Washington football team. But I'm going to be a little different here, and I'm going to go with Jim Schwartz. And again, that Cleveland defense is just, a generational defense. This guy's a defensive genius. In fact, I had said back in the day that he should have been the head coach of the Bills, before Rex the Clown got here. So I thought he would have been a great head coach here. He had that Bills defense as one of the top defenses in the league back in the day. I think he was with Detroit before that. And just to get this Cleveland defense, again, basically a generational defense here that just played amazing football that nobody really saw this coming. I think I'm going to go in his direction. Ben Johnson, certainly, I can't disagree with that, but I guess just to be a little different and to, I'm so impressed with the defense that the Browns had. I'm going to go with Schwartz.
Yeah, I'm going to go with our buddy Schwartz too. And I thought he was going to get promoted to. I thought so too, that he was going to be our new head coach at the time when Marone left, and a lot of people said, well, it didn't really work out with Detroit. Part of that's true, but part of the reason is he had to rebuild an 0-16 team that nobody wanted to coach, and he wanted to take that job, and he got the most out of a team that was 0-16 and got Matthew Stafford, and at least had the Lions relevant again. They weren't a total dumpster fire. They did have his moments. The reason why it could have worked out better in Buffalo, because I think he already would have inherited what Marone was trying to build there, and he would have just basically left the defense alone. And I don't know if they would have kept Nathaniel Hackett at the time. Maybe he would have brought in a better offensive coordinator, but who knows? Maybe he would have brought in Greg Roman at the time, like Rex Ryan, because the thought process of bringing in Rex Ryan is when they hired Rex Ryan, they actually wanted Greg Roman to be the head coach. So then Rex just basically said, okay, I'm going to use him as an offensive coordinator, but Schwartz could have brought in Greg Roman at the time. But back to your point, he's always been a defensive guru, and he actually he's one of those guys who Belichick taught him how to run defenses, because Belichick was a defensive guy. He took under Belichick's wings on how to coach defense, and with the Browns, and he already was with the Browns as a video technician when Belichick was the coach. So he got to return to Cleveland and do the number one defense in the league. So yeah, I'm going to go Jim Schwartz. So we have 2 votes for Jim Schwartz and 1 for Ben Johnson. Well, it looks like we are coming to the end of our show. Joe, where can we find you in the social media world on Tuesday, January the 30th, 2024?
I am on Twitter X, Joe Dale Sports, talking about football. Disappointing that the football season's coming to an end now. But there's a couple of sports I enjoy more than football even, hockey and basketball, and we got some information on that. There's a particular basketball tournament coming up in a couple of months too that we're looking forward to. So football is going to be leaving us, but plenty of good sports to come. So, I'll talk about it there, Joe Dell Sports on Twitter.
Football doesn't leave me though, and I'll tell you why in a second. But first, AJ, where can we find you? Tell our viewers where can we find you in social media.
You can find me on X at Andy J. Glagman, and I don't talk much about sports on there, but I am open to it. So a lot of retweets, a lot of random thoughts that don't make any sense to anyone but me. So come and get it.
Yep, that's just like your cousin here does a bunch of random retweets and tweets that nobody else understands except you and I. That's why we always retweet each other's posts and everything. And anyway, you can find me, yours truly, on Bill's Chat 1 at Bill's Mafia Chat, and at Jamie Malloy, the unbiased journalist, and DJ Dog Tags on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to start calling it the platform formerly with the bird logo. Anyway, and also at DefiantTakesFootball.com, where I write for Defiant Takes Football about the Bills, Syracuse football, and spring football. Yes, notice when I said football doesn't leave me yet, that's because I'm going to be watching the first season of the merged spring league, the UFL, which starts on March 30th with the Birmingham Stallions traveling to deep in the heart of Arlington, Texas, to take on the Arlington Renegades. And as they say, everything's bigger in Texas. Thank you very much for listening. And remember, folks, this year's Super Bowl will be a rematch of Super Bowl 54. Could Josh Allen win MVP award without winning a Super Bowl? And could Bill Belichick replace Tony Romo as NFL analyst? Well, Jim, we're on to the next play. And guess what? We're on to Cincinnati next week. Anyway, and to quote our friend Chris Berman, nobody circles the wagons, even though they've still yet to beat the Chiefs in the playoffs, like the Buffalo Bills. See you next time, folks.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.